Welcome everyone to Meditation Mount and to the monthly View from the Mount broadcast. And this month we are focusing on a call to rise up, a spiritual uprising. And we'll be exploring the nature of free will, the compelling call of the soul to be fully revealed, as well as seeking to better understand the power of focused thought as an instrument for building a new reality together. So let's begin as we normally do by bringing ourselves present, gathering ourselves in time and space from our various geographical locations in the here and now. And we do this by taking a series of deep, gentle breaths through which we release any tensions that we may be holding first in our physical body. Breathing out tension, releasing and relaxing. Continuing to breathe deeply, we allow any tensions in our emotional body, our feelings, to be released, so that the emotional waters become calm. And then we clear the mind of any extraneous thoughts as we breathe deeply, releasing anything that may be swirling in the ethers, letting it go so that our mind becomes a clear, pure field of receptivity, a place of serenity. And having achieved this outer stillness, let us turn inwards and enter the silent and sacred chamber of our heart and sense the pulsing of life, the eternal beat of the one life. And at the center of our heart, there burns an eternal flame. And this flame we know as the fire of love. It burns in the heart of each one of us. It is what we share in common. So let us consciously connect heart to heart to heart and see ourselves linked together by lines of lighted love that weave together a group field. This is the group chalice into which new inspiration is invited, into which new insights are welcomed as we inquire the way together. Thank you. So let's begin with an image we can all relate to because every day it happens. So with the dawn of each day, the sun reassuringly rises in the heavens, and we gladly welcome anew its inviting light and warmth and its life-giving power into our lives. Now, if you look at this on a deeper level of self, our inner sun does likewise. The soul is constantly shining and beckoning, always inviting us to open our hearts, open our minds, and to receive its radiant presence, because that presence will illumine and nourish our daily rounds. You could see it as a magnetic appeal from life itself, via the sun, via the soul. It's a powerful invitation to rise up, to meet, to greet, and to merge with what I call the luminosity of the sovereign self. This is the inner sun. And the powerful radiatory fire of being that is burning brightly at the core of our essential nature exerts a constant inner pressure to be acknowledged, to be embraced, to be revealed. There's always a pressure of life inside that wants to come out, that wants to be manifested. And yet, we are always at liberty to respond to this call with either a yes or a no. So no matter how compelling the call, we have free will that says we can either say yes or no for the time being. What I'd like to put forward is that the soul invites and appeals to us, but never coerces or demands absolute obedience of us as its incarnated agent on earth. This for me is a really important point. It has to do with the whole mystery of free will. And in the spiritual lineage that runs through Meditation Mount, I'd like to quote from this following teaching that is given by the Tibetan, the Master DK, written down by Alice Bailey. And there are some words that further explain what I was just hinting at. So let me bring up this slide for you. Here's the quote. There is no obligation to obey. We seek to train intelligent servers of humanity, and these are developed by self-initiated effort, freedom in action, and discrimination in method, and not by unquestioning obedience, negative acquiescence, and blind following. If any command may ever emanate from the subjective band of teachers, of whom I am a humble member, let it be to follow the dictates of your own soul and the promptings of your higher self. So this explains to us that we're going to be encouraged, we're going to be supported, we're going to be invited, but the gift of free will says we get to choose. We get to choose if and when we respond to the call of the soul. So let's have a look at what this might mean. Why is it deemed to be of the highest importance for us to freely decide our own destiny? Because that's what it's hinting at. I believe the answer to this question is intimately tied up with the mystery of free will itself, and with the individual's right to choose. That is, according to the Ageless Wisdom teaching, the appointed pedagogical approach for the evolution of human consciousness upon our particular planet. This is how I see it. Inside this developmental process, it's imperative that each person has the freedom to think and act for themselves, so that when we eventually say yes to life, it comes from the very heart of our being as a willing and joyful expression of our deepest desire. Illumination cannot be imposed from the outside. The innate light of wisdom can only be released and revealed through a self-initiated act, an act of will. And if you go back to the Ageless Wisdom teachings, they talk about the law that is held in the sun Sirius, the Sirian law of freedom that pervades this whole universe. It's by free will and conscious choice that the many parts, the separated parts, are bringing themselves home to reclaim their oneness, to re-find their unity. It's also said that inside the heart of every atom of Earth is the light of the sun Sirius. So at the heart of every atom of matter, there is this cosmic light. And so the evolution of consciousness, the revelation of the light of wisdom, is really the revelation and the manifestation on earth of the indwelling light. So the release of the light within matter goes hand in hand with the calling in of the light from the heavens. So this is what it means to bring heaven down on earth and to lift earth up into heaven by releasing the light that is locked in the earth, by calling in the light of the heavens. And when the two merge, a new light is born. So I believe that a conscious act of choosing allows us to experience life firsthand. And through this immersion, the light of wisdom is spontaneously generated in an aha moment of self-realization. It has to be born from inside ourselves. So inside the womb of a lived experience, we give birth to our own indwelling light, because it's the child of our own conception and manifestation that we're being asked to deliver into the world, not something adopted from an external source. If we adopt something from an external source without having given birth to it first, it's not ours. We don't own it. Also, we haven't given birth to it. Therefore, we are not a representative of that light which has been birthed on earth. And our role is to be the co-creative agents and the revealers of the light of the soul in matter. So this goes back to the whole thing of free will. I'd like to share one other image with you. And this one talks about choice. This next one, can you imagine coming to a crossroads? Which way do I go? Do I go left? Do I go right? What happens? If I go this way, will I be a different person? Is there a right choice? I believe that free will doesn't alter our essential nature. It just changes the nature of how it's revealed. It just gives us the time and space in which to consciously choose how, when, and where to reveal ourselves. So that free will is our way of choosing the time and the place and the methodology of revealing the truth that lives inside of us, because that's our gift to the world. We are an aspect of the one. We are an aspect that we call the many, and the many are returning home to the one. Therefore, free will is how we do this consciously, intentionally. So there's no coercion, although there is, if you like, a promise that lives inside of us that would love to be revealed. As I think about this, another important reason for beginning to think for ourselves is really intertwined with the power of thought as an instrument for creating new realities. This is how the worlds come into being, through thought. So with every intentional thought, we actually set in motion an entity, a living thought form. That living thought form has color, has quality, and as we continue to give it energy, it begins to condense. And as it condenses, it enters the world and it shapes the world, and it becomes the place, the new place in which we inhabit. So a thought form can be so powerful that we live inside it without knowing that we're living inside a thought form of life rather than living inside life itself. So the quality of our thinking determines the quality of life on earth for us as individuals and collectively as a species. So when the focus of intent of our aspirations, which is magnetized by the benevolence of the heart, when we hold the dream of a preferred future in this way, it actually grows in potency. And as it grows in potency, it becomes, if you like, this super saturated solution on the inner planes, and then eventually reaches the point of precipitation, where it issues forth into form. So this is the regenerative cycle. I see life as a continuous cycle involving the construction of form life to express spirit. Then it's followed by a cycle of the destruction of form. And then after that, a reconstruction of new forms. And as we've said many times on these broadcasts, the outer forms are temporary by nature. They are composed and then decomposed when they have delivered on their intended promise. So we have this rhythm of appearance, disappearance, reappearance, birth, death, rebirth. So let me just illustrate that with a slide that just captures what I've just described. In the continuous pageant of life, through the cyclical procession of the seasons, the angel of endings always precedes the spirit of regeneration, so that truth, goodness, and beauty may be born anew and more radiantly revealed at every turn of the spiral. Appearance, disappearance, and reappearance. Such is the generative nature of emergence. And for me, that's a really good reminder of the process of form building, that I don't get attached to the form. I build the form to express the eternal nature of who I am and who we are together, what life is. And when the form has served its purpose, it is recycled. Therefore, death is not a death of myself as an essential being. It's the completion of a cycle of expression of my essential being. That's a big difference for me. So spirit utilizes this seasonal procession of Mother Nature to externalize, to take on new expressions that reveal even more of the innate promise than the previous cycle. So every turn of the spiral, every season that we go through allows us to express more deeply and just more radiantly and just more joyfully what lives on the inside. I believe our task now is to shape new and better thought forms that are more in harmony with the quality of loving kindness, so that what we create on the outside through thought projection truly exemplifies the highest ideals that we hold in our heart and mind. So with thought, we are using the power of focused thought, using the magnanimity of the heart, and through this lens, we actually create thought forms which are then projected out into the world, onto the screen of time, space, and substance. And that's the world in which we live. It's what is often referred to in the teaching as the three worlds of illusion. Even though they're real and we can touch them, they're not real in the sense of they are reality. They're a projection of the inner reality. What I'd like to do is to read you something that was written back in 2013. And it was my attempt to express what it means to be a shaper of new worlds. So let me just read this for you. We shape the needed thought forms of a new world waiting to be born out of the stuff of dreams that live within the heart and mind of Gaia. Like an artist takes the clay of earth and shapes it with skillful fingers on the turning potter's wheel to bring forth a form that is of use and of beauty, so on the inner levels, we shape the substance of the planetary dream with the subtle hands of our collective imagination upon the turning wheel of time, so that new possibilities may emerge as gifts to our world. The form, however, is not fully complete until it has danced in the fire. The potter places the newly shaped earthenware into a kiln, and only when the right temperature and duration have been reached does the form reveal its true glazed splendor and usefulness. Likewise, it is only when the forms of our creative imagination are placed in the sacrificial fire of higher purpose that the work is finished and the truth, goodness, and beauty of our labor is revealed. Life takes shape through us as we open ourselves to impression, register the seed ideas held within the divine dream, and then fashion them into useful forms of living through the agency of the creative mind and loving heart. This is the ritual of continuous renewal and the never-ending story of co-creation. This is why it's so important that we are mindful of our thoughts, because everything we think emits something. And if it's not what we intended, we have to clean it up. But every thought that we emit, if it's a powerful thought, will actually come alive. And so our ethers are full of thoughts. Some of them are benevolent, some of them are malevolent. Others are simply just weak. They're like soap bubbles, they disappear. But when you really think about it, our thoughts are how we build the sacred temple of the self in which the fire of love can dwell. So focused thought is the way we collectively imagine and manifest a preferred future in resonance with the soul, because in this way we are serving the good of the whole. Because at the moment we are seeking to build the temple of the new humanity. I believe in 2025, right now, we're faced at this time with a monumental decision as a human family. Do we continue to employ callous and selfish thinking and thus strengthen and reinforce the cell walls of materialism in which we are presently confined? Or do we dismantle this self-created prison and build instead the golden temple of our highest aspirations? So I'm going to be showing a couple more slides and just taking you through the whole, what I deem to be the process of temple building. So the two pillars of this temple, the power to create and the power to synthesize and maintain oneness throughout creation. So with power comes responsibility. So our responsibility is to build a temple. And that temple is the dwelling place of our spirit on earth. And as you think about the greater representation of the temple, it's a way where spirit that has diversified itself, where the one broke into the many parts, where its fragments can realize that they are part of something greater, then they come home. So it is also the unification of the many wholenesses into one greater whole. So as we ourselves become whole in ourselves, that is only a partial experience of life, because then we join with others to form a greater self. So the temple of divinity, or the temple of the new humanity, is when we collectively realize that we are the revelation and the manifestation of one being, the soul of humanity. So the building of the temple always takes place from the inside out. And for this deep work of construction to be successful, we here at Meditation Mount employ the practice of creative meditation. And if you want to learn more about it, please go to our website, and on one of the drop-down menu tabs, you can click on creative meditation. It'll give you the background. It's how you create the thought forms, how you magnetize them, how you potentize them, how you release them into the ethers like magnetized seeds that then can take root in the fertile fields of the purified psychological space that is a pure mind and a pure heart. So going back to the temple, the blocks of our temple have to be hewn in accordance with these inner blueprints, the architecture and the design of the soul. And they need to be made out of the purest and most refined matter. So there is a design for the temple. There is an inner design that is the truth of who we are. And as we learn to build the temple, we're simply externalizing an inner reality. So the outer temple is a representation of this inner sacred space. So in the same way that the finished bricks and mortar of a house starts life as a dream and then an architectural drawing, so the promise of a brighter future for our society on earth begins with a potent thought form that we need to create. We have the ability and the power to create a magnetic meme, a preferred future, which we impress upon the receptive field of the collective intuition by sounding a compelling note of purpose. And this thought form of a preferred future, we continue to work with it like a potter molding and shaping the clay. We add pure mental matter. We give it feelings and qualities. We make sure that its etheric substance is pure and refined, so that this thought form, when it actually condenses, it is a representation of our highest ideals. So through the focused power of the higher mind in cooperation with a compassionate heart, these are the tools of building the temple. At Meditation Mount, we believe that the temple needs to stand firmly on the solid ground of spiritual principles. It needs an unshakable base that's built stone by stone, day by day. We work with three principles here that we believe are foundational. They're the ethical bedrock of anything new. So our job is to recognize and live into these principles. There's the principle of essential divinity that affirms that the Creator lives inside of us. The fire of the Creator is present in each of us, in our hearts. So really, we are fractals of the one life. We are the carriers of the one life. And as we learn to embody the principle of goodwill, we understand that love is the reason and the substance of life, that love is the true glue that connects all beings. And then we experience the principle of unanimity in our blood and our bones as we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we're part of a limitless, loving, and interwoven matrix of life. So we believe that these three principles of essential divinity, goodwill, and unanimity, once they're in place, whatever we build on top of that will ensure a society that is respectful, joyful, celebrates life, reveals life, is a true expression of the deep desire of that sentient being that is the life of this planet. So at this pivotal time, as we're sensing one great cycle coming to an end and the crumbling of its outworn and unstable foundations and structures, there is the emergence of something new. Many of us are hearing on the inner a call from the soul of humanity. It's being registered in our hearts, and I experience it as an invitation to enter a time of reimagination and reconstruction together based on these principles and values that serve the highest good of all. So what is really taking place at the moment from a spiritual perspective? I'd like to share with you three images. And these three images portray what I believe is taking place. The world is now passing through its own shadow. This darkness represents the sum total of all the unresolved thoughts and actions of humanity. So this is clearing up the past. This is taking responsibility for the consequences of our actions. This, if you like, is we are reaping what we have sown. And if we haven't sown light, and if we've sown some shadowy aspects, we have to meet the shadow and we have to liberate it by bringing love and light into it, by dissolving it. So I believe that we are going through a major test as a humanity of having to face our own shadow, which is the accumulated consequences of everything we set in motion through our thinking, through our behaving. And we're doing it so we can clear the field for a new day to be born. So the so that is important. It's so that the light of a new day can be revealed. But the preparatory work of creation is always purifying and clearing a space. I believe the fire of transformation has been invoked and that the work of purification has begun. So if you have if you like here, this cauldron in the shape of the world, when fire is not present, the sediment tends to go to the bottom. It settles. But when you apply fire, it starts to circulate. It starts to bring up everything that was at the bottom, that was possibly hidden. And so what we've got is this great circulation of all the elements inside the auric field of our human soul. And we're having to deal with and face the consequences of our actions. That's happening real time now. You look in your local communities, you look around the world, look at different nations. We are acting out this facing of the shadow. And the way that we overcome the shadow is by contacting the light and the love that lives at the heart of who we truly are. So here's what I believe the task is. Let me read this with you. The task at hand. Collectively, we find ourselves deep inside a major identity crisis and living in a world that appears to be falling apart. I believe we have two tasks to perform: relieving the pain and suffering induced by a collapsing society while simultaneously dreaming the dream and doing whatever it takes to birth this bright new future together. New forms, to be truly new, must be born out of new thinking, so that the new is not simply a presentation of the old that has been repaired, repainted, and repolished. We need a new mythos, a new creation story based on the principles and qualities of the soul to guide us through the labor pains of this moment in history and inspire us to build our preferred future together that honors and separates and celebrates life. For me, that's the call that I find myself responding to, and I believe that we're being asked to respond to. So as I've just hinted at, the building of the new temple of humanity requires that we first clear, purify, and consecrate a space in which the building can take place. So with the shadow, we're faced with what has gone before, what we've generated. And the pain of the past often lingers in the present, as it does now, as a dark foreboding cloud, and this can easily obscure the light of the soul. And for many people, it creates a sense of suffering, hopelessness, and it dampens the creative spirit. So our task is to remove those clouds. We created the clouds, we have the power to remove them. How do we do that? Through the power of thought, through the power of the heart. For me, it's the unshakable faith and hope of a brighter future that is sensed deep inside the heart by the soul. I see the soul, in building terms, as the master mason. And the soul shines in the present, dispels the darkness, reveals the possibility of the future. So the soul is really a representation of what I would call expectant joy. So joy and fiery hope liberate the energy of the soul, and they allow us to show up in the here and now as a powerful force for good, and also as an active agent of positive change in the world. It's not just about thinking and projecting a new world. We also need to act in a way each day that anchors that dream into reality. So we are asked to be subtle activists. We're bringing the qualities of the subtle and the inner realm into outer manifestation by how we show up in the world. So I'd like to conclude with the final two slides. And this just sort of sums up what we've dealt with so far. In order to let go, there has to be a surrendering. So let me just read what's written here. Evolution of consciousness occurs naturally through a progressive revelation and entry into greater states of wholeness, identity, and embodiment. By surrendering to and embracing this continuous process of disidentification, re-identification, and renewal, we experience an expanded sense of self. As the illusion of separation dissolves, it reveals the divine intimacy and interdependency of life, that great mystery in which we live and move and have our being. At this point, there arises a deep knowing in our blood and bones that in essence, we are fractals of the one life. Even though occasionally we may feel separated from life, it's a temporary obscuration created by the clouds that we have inadvertently produced by the way we think and show up. But when the soul is present in the sky of our daily lives, that sun disperses the clouds and brings light and warmth that produces new growth. So the final invitation: dare to liberate yourself and release all of the patterns, prejudices, doubts and fears still inhibiting the natural flowering of your true self in the Garden of Earth. Surrender and gracefully flow with the process of the continuous unfolding and flowering of your soul. Joyfully surrender and enter wholeheartedly into the dance of life so that the divine promise of your essential nature, held and safeguarded on the inside, may reveal itself in full splendor on the outside. Basically a call for the soul to come out of the closet and to be present as a radiatory figure on earth. I believe that by responding wholeheartedly and unhesitatingly to this fiery call from the soul of humanity, because we're talking about the greater identity of which we're a part, as we respond to this positively, we rise, we become the radiant inner sun, the risen sun. And this is the way that we will create a new world together, a new solar civilization, not just S-O-L-A-R, but S-O-U-L-A-R, a solar civilization. We do this by holding this preferred future alive in our hearts and minds, but we also do it by how we show up each day, one day at a time. And we connect one heart at a time with each other. So this theme that we have been exploring today was the the call to rise. I believe the uprising of spirit and action that's being called from us now is exactly this, showing up in the world as the true light and love of our central self, the sun revealed. I guess if there's any invitation that we need to extend to each other, it's let's rise and shine together. Let's rise and shine together as sisters and brothers on the path of service. So for me, it's a call. And as we said in the beginning, we have the freedom to say yes or no. However, there are always consequences of every choice. There are consequences of saying yes, there are consequences of saying no, and yet we have the right to say no. However, I believe at the heart of who we are, there is a big yes waiting to be proclaimed. That big yes is an affirmation that I am part of life. I am a messenger of light. So I thank you for your presence and your participation today. And on behalf of all of us here at Meditation Mount, deep gratitude. I bid you farewell and good evening and blessings from the Ojai Valley in Southern California. And let's meet again next month. Namaste.